many, many years ago, I used to, and this is a church that has boys' brigade and girls' brigade, and I was always in scouts. So, all right. It's not a pantomime, calm down, you know. And I went through, we didn't have beavers in my day because I'm that old, but we had cubs, then we had scouts, and then we had venture scouts. They're called explorers these days. And the reason we loved venture scouts is because venture scouts is when girls are allowed to join, which when you're sort of 14, 15, it makes it all the more worthwhile, doesn't it? And so we loved, and venture scouts, we did some crazy things. We used to go, tunneling, or you go canoeing, and loads of things. And I always remember one Saturday, we went up to somewhere in the Brecon Beacons, and we did abseiling with the RAF Mountain Rescue Team. And it was such wow, what a great experience, what a great day it was. And they harnessed us all up, and they gave us their helmets and all of this kind of stuff. And we're sort of, 16, 17-year-old lads, and we know what we're doing. And they told us to calm down. And when he said to me, can you tie the safety rope around the tree for everybody else? That's when my stomach turned a little bit. So did all my mates. But anyway, we did all of that. And we'd spent all day doing this, and then we'd had lunch, and we got to the end of the day and said, right, now what we're going to do, we're going to show you how to abseil down a cliff when you don't have a harness. When all you've got is the rope. But you're at the top of the cliff, and imagine a bear is chasing you. I said, there's no bears in the Brecon Beacons. But anyway, imagine something's happened and you need to get down the cliff, and all you've got is a rope. We're going to show you how you can abseil down the cliff without a safety harness. This is before safeguarding and all of the risk assessments and all of those kind of things. And how you're going to get down a rope. This is what you do. So imagine this is the rope. Well, it is rope, I know that, but imagine it's a rope on that Saturday afternoon, and it's hanging down. And so what you do is you put it behind you, and you put it through your legs, and you pull it up. And boys, he said, it's going to hurt a little bit. You know what I mean, I don't need to go into detail. And he said, you hold it there, and you go down the rope. And we thought he was joking, and he said, Wayne, you're going first. I said, sorry? You're going first. I went, okay. He said, the only thing you need to worry about is when this part of the rope starts to move down towards your knee, because it's in the wrong place. And when it does that, it's very easy for it to just go straight, and you're literally hanging on with your hands. I went, okay. So I get to the end of the cliff. I think he's going to, at any moment now, he's going to say, I'm only teasing. We've got no harnesses. And we start going down. And as we're going down, the thing that he said you should be scared of if happens, happened. And the rope started to move down towards my knee. I've never screamed for my mummy more than I did on that day. And I just bellowed for all I was worth. I said, what's the matter? I went, it's by my knee! He said, just wait there. And one of them, just shimmies straight down the cliff, pulls it right back up where, I've still got 2 children, pulls it right back up, and down we go. Wow. I was really, how much did you want me to trip over that and fall in? You did, didn't you? I was really, really scared, but it worked. And it gave me a story for this sermon as well, which is even better. Dave, this is a really long rope, isn't it? You know, when you said, do you want to cut a bit of it? I know, it's all right, it's really long. Today, we're continuing our series. We're in a series as a church on a Sunday, looking at the walks of Jesus. So Jesus didn't have cars 2,000 years ago. He walked everywhere. It's estimated throughout his 3 years of ministry, he walked over 3,500 miles as he did his ministry. And we're looking at, not all of them, but some of the walks that Jesus did and what it is that we can learn from. And today we're looking at Jesus' walk on the water. And no, I'm not going to be able to do that. I'm just putting that out there. I did say, could we get a really strong bit of perspex that could just lay on the top and I could just walk across? But it's too expensive, so we didn't do it. And our Bible passage today speaks powerfully to what baptism represents. That is, trusting Jesus in the whole of life, including the storm, stepping out in faith and discovering that he is truly Lord of our lives. So let's look at this Bible passage about Jesus walking on the water. Immediately after this, so this is after Jesus has fed the 5,000. Immediately after this, Jesus insisted that his disciples get back into the boat and cross to the other side of the lake while he sent the people home. After sending them home, he went up into the hills by himself to pray. Night fell while he was there alone. Meanwhile, the disciples were in trouble far away from land, for a strong wind had risen, and they were fighting heavy waves. About 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came toward them walking on the water. When the disciples saw him walking on the water, they were terrified. In their fear, they cried out, "It's a ghost!" But Jesus spoke to them at once. "Don't be afraid," he said. "Take courage, I am here." Then Peter called to him, "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you walking on the water." "Yes, come," Jesus said. So Peter went over the side of the boat and walked on the water towards Jesus. But when he saw the strong wind and the waves, he was terrified and began to sink. "Save me, Lord," he shouted. Jesus immediately reached out and grabbed him. "You have so little faith," Jesus said. "Why did you doubt me?" When they climbed back into the boat, the wind stopped. Then the disciples worshipped him. "You really are the Son of God," they exclaimed. We've had some rain lately, haven't we? I've lost count of the number of people I've spoken to this week who have said to me, the weather's been awful. I spoke to someone on Friday who said they're so over this rainy weather. They cannot wait for spring and summer to arrive. And while I tend to agree with them, the reality is the weather is not always sunny and warm. I'm a Welshman. It's not always sunny and warm. And there are times in season when it is wet, cold and stormy. And that's a metaphor for life, isn't it? Yes, there are times when all is really great and all is good. And we equate that to life is sunny. We're on a mountaintop experience. But when life is tough, we talk about our lives are in a storm. And while none of us want the storm, the big idea for this sermon is really good news for us. For you see, Jesus is always Lord even when the storms of life hit. And while a sermon that talks about storms of life doesn't seem to be very uplifting for a baptism service, there's really good news here that can uplift us and carry us through life. See, going back to my abseiling experience, the RAF instructors were in charge and in control when we were all harnessed up. They had our safety in mind. And these same instructors were still in charge and control even when things started to go a bit pear-shaped. It wasn't what I wanted, but they still had it all in hand. And it gave me this story to tell. And this is good news to hold on to. For we can sometimes feel that Jesus is only Lord. And by that, we mean that Jesus is in charge. He's in control. He's present with us, guiding us and so on, only when life is good. When we have no struggles or doubts or failings. When the sun is shining and all is well with the world. And let's be honest, that's what we want life to be, isn't it? But the reality is life isn't always like that, and the storms will come. Things will not always go the way we want or have hoped. We will fail. We cannot live life on the mountaintop all of the time. And yet we find this hard because the world we live in tells us that we're to have no problems. The world tells you that your life shouldn't be hard. The world tells you that you deserve certain things. The world tells you if you haven't got those certain things, just manifest them and they'll suddenly appear. And even though we know many people are using filters on their social media to make life look wonderful, and we know that they only post things from a certain viewpoint to make them look good, we still fall into the trap that says to us anything less than a perfect life is a wrong life. But think about this passage. These first disciples, the people that Jesus chose, he handpicked them to be part of his ministry of saving the world. These people faced huge storms, and they were physically with Jesus. So surely we will face storms, won't we? For here is a timeless truth. Life is not always easy, and following Jesus doesn't make it any easier. But it does make it more worthwhile and purposeful. And it is the best life that you can live. So what are the things that we can learn from this passage, and how does it connect to believers' baptism? Well, firstly, following Jesus does not stop us walking through storms in life. Matthew tells us that Jesus insisted the disciples get into the boat and cross to the other side of the lake. The disciples were followers of Jesus. They were, sometimes the term is, they were apprenticing under Jesus. Jesus was their rabbi. And they were not in a storm because they'd been disobedient. They weren't in a storm because Jesus had told them to do something and they had disregarded that. They were exactly where Jesus had sent them to go, and yet they found themselves in the middle of a storm. And it can be easy to think that as long as we choose Jesus to be with us, to seek to become like Jesus, to do what Jesus would do if he was us, we'll never be in trouble, we'll never be in a storm, and everything will go humanly well. But that's simply not true. Going back to my abseiling experience, I did everything the RAF Mountain Rescue Team instructor told me to do. I followed his instructions to the letter for one simple reason: I didn't want to die. That was it. I did not want to die. He told me how to wrap the rope around me. And I didn't think to myself, what do you know? RAF. What's that anyway? You know, it's not the army, is it? What do you know? What if I said to him, what do you know? That doesn't feel very comfortable. I'm going to do it a different way. I didn't do any of that. I did exactly as the guy told me to do, yet I still found myself in trouble. I still found myself dangling in the air halfway down a cliff. Think about how that feels to real life. You do what you believe God has asked. You commit to Christ. You choose integrity. You take a stand in faith. And then trouble comes anyway. It feels unfair. It feels confusing. But at that point, you have a point to make. You have a decision to throw the towel in and shout it's all unfair, or to stay the course through the storm, to stay faithful and obedient to Jesus and allow him to guide you through the storm, even if you don't feel like it. I remember the morning after, nearly 30 years ago, that my mum died. And she died on a Saturday, and Sunday morning I found myself in church, and somebody said to me, I'm surprised you're here. And I just said, well, where else would I be? Did I feel like all was well with the world? Not a chance. Did I feel like, from a faith point of view, I was clinging on by the tips of my fingers? You bet I did. But for me, the other option of letting go of God because life was tough felt far more dangerous than just clinging on by my fingertips. You see, following Jesus will not always feel comfortable, but it will always be right. The boat that the disciples were in represented safety for the disciples. It was familiar. Many of us have our own boats, don't we? Comfort zones we trust, routines, finances, relationships, self-reliance. Following Jesus does not always keep us in those safe places. And baptism is not a promise of calm seas ahead for Nick, Rachel, Matt, and Alex. But it is a declaration from them and a promise to them that Jesus is worth following even when the storms come. The second thing we learn is that Jesus grows our faith through storms. Growth is often painful, isn't it? That's why we use the term growing pains. I can think of times when I've been in a difficult situation and I've grown through it. I've shared before, when I was about 11, first year of secondary school, so that's year 7 in New Money, I was lined up in a dinner queue and I had a long metal locker key and there was a plug socket without a switch on. And I thought to myself, what would happen if I put this long metal locker key in that little hole by there? I learned not to do that again. The whole school electrics went poof. Everything went out. My mate's bag got covered in sparks. The thing that saved my life was a pair of DMs because they had a rubber sole. I've told you before, I was known as Sparky from that day on for the whole 5 years of school. It's a true story. I got asked by a geography teacher, he called me, I can't say in church what he called me. This was the early 80s. He said, what would have happened if somebody was on a trampoline and they were bouncing up and the lights went on? I said, sir, they'd come straight back down, wouldn't they? Because it's called gravity. Don't be such a bang. But I learned not to do that. I've never done it since. I've never done it in the last 44 years. I've never stuck a metal locker key in a plug socket because I know what happens when you do. But I've also had storm moments in life of bereavement, of loss of jobs, of ending of relationships or health issues or financial struggles, all of which I've had, which is not an exhaustive list. None of these life storms have been fun, but I have grown through each and every one of them. What is it that I've learned through the storms that have come in my life that have grown my faith? First thing I've learned is that the storm doesn't mean Jesus has left me. What I think we can all too easily overlook with this passage is that Jesus was in the same storm that the disciples found themselves in. We read about 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came. Where did he come? He came towards them. We don't read that Jesus hovered above them. He didn't walk along the bank. He wasn't walking on an elevated platform that was stable. He wasn't somehow walking sort of within a sheltered structure like going through SeaWorld in Florida, where all the sea is around you and you're safe and protected. No. Jesus was walking toward them in the middle of the same storm that they were in. And this says to me that because Jesus doesn't leave us when the storms of life hit, he sees what we're going through. He sees us because he's with us. Yes, at first the disciples couldn't see Jesus because they thought he was a ghost. After all, who walks on water? But friends, not being able to see Jesus doesn't mean that Jesus isn't there. I couldn't see the RAF instructors as I found myself in trouble, yet they could see me. One was peering over the top and one was at the bottom. And the reason I couldn't see them because my eyes were closed. But they were still there. They were on the same cliff that I was on. And in this passage, Jesus was in the same storm that the disciples were in. And when you go through a storm in life, Jesus is there with you. We read in Psalm 33, watch this. God's eye is on those who respect him. The ones who are looking for his love. He's ready to come to their rescue in bad times. His eye is on you. He sees you. Maybe some of you are struggling in a storm right now. You've been obedient and yet the storm has still come. You feel all alone. Friends, may you know that Jesus sees you. His eye is on you because he's in the storm with you. Even when Jesus seems distant, he is never absent. For those being baptized today, this is a promise to carry with you. It's a promise for all of us. When the waters feel deep and the storms feel strong, Jesus is with you, so he sees you and he will walk towards you. We read in the Old Testament book of Isaiah words that give great comfort and hope. They're words that are so precious to me. We read, but now, God's message, the God who made you in the first place, Jacob, the one who got you started, Israel. Don't be afraid. I've redeemed you. I've called you by name. You're mine. When you're in over your head, I'll be with you. When you're in the rough waters, you will not go down. When you're between a rock and a hard place, it won't be a dead end, because I am God, your personal God, the Holy of Israel, your Savior. I paid a huge price for you. All of Egypt with rich Cushion Sea were thrown in. That's how much you mean to me. That's how much I love you. I'd sell off the whole world to get you back. Trade the creation just for you. When we're between a rock and a hard place, when the storms are coming, Jesus is with us. He promises the storm won't win. See, I said there'd be good news, didn't I? The second way Jesus grows our faith in our storms is Jesus often shows us something new in our storms. I like the disciple Peter. He was impulsive. He was a little bit reckless. I think we should all be a bit more Peter. As a family, my wife and I, we have some friends whose surname is Morlin. And they're just a great family. We don't get to see them very often, but they have lots of fun, even though life has thrown some tough storms at them. Tony's a Methodist minister. Kathy was an actress, but now leads a charity using the arts to help women. And sometimes when I'm being a bit Wayne, a bit woe is me, and life is too hard, and I'm letting it all get on top of me, my wife Jem says to me, Wayne, be more Morlin. It's a phrase we have in our house, be more Morlin. They just seem to get on with it. They just seem to know that Jesus is with them. And what is it that we can learn through that? And to walk through our storms, we sometimes need to be more Peter. For Peter asks a bold question, Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on the water. And Jesus answers with a single word, come. You see, Peter shows us faith is not having all the answers. Peter had no idea about the science of how it was going to work when he stands on the water. Because everything within him would tell him that he's a fisherman. So Peter's a fisherman. That's what his trade was. So he knows that when he's gone fishing, if he was to step out of the boat, and he's fallen out of the boat many times, he knows he's going to sink. So he has it does not compute in his brain how Jesus is actually walking on the water, and how if he looks at Jesus, he's going to walk on the water. It's a new thing. And yet he does it. See, faith is responding to the call of Jesus. Peter steps out of the boat, not because the water became safe, but because Jesus invited him. When I stepped over the edge of that cliff, I felt I was being more Peter. And in that moment where everything felt unfamiliar, knowing I wasn't in full control, but I trusted the instructors, it was a new thing. And baptism is a step like that. You're stepping out not because you're strong, but because Jesus is trustworthy and can show you something new. You see, Peter didn't say to Jesus, yeah, I'll come, but can you stop the storm first? He didn't. Peter stepped out of the boat into the storm. The storm was already there. And in doing so, Jesus showed him something new. He showed him how to walk on water. How great is that? Hands up if you've walked on water. Well, nobody. How strange. You know, yes, I know he sang, we'll come to that in a moment, but he's the only disciple who could ever say, wow, guys, I walked on water. I often wish God gave me the gift of hindsight before things happen. Do you like that? Not only would this stop me from getting into trouble, but because I would find it easier to go through the storms of life if I knew what would happen during and after the storm and how I'd get out of it. But that's not how God works. Through the storms, he shows something new, and this grows our faith because it grows our trust in him. And the third way Jesus grows our faith in storms is Jesus helps us when we get it wrong. What we learn from Peter is that even when we sink, Jesus still saves. Peter didn't sink because all of a sudden a great swell on that lake came up all around him, which did happen in that part of the world. No, the storm, as we said, was already there. Peter sunk because he changed his focus. You see, when he was looking at Jesus, not at the storm, not at his feet, everything was okay. But the minute he changed his focus, the minute he changed his attention, that's when he sunk. And I think many of us do that. We enter a stormy season, which is tough. I'm not belittling that. But we struggle in the storm because we allow our focus to move away from Jesus to what is happening around us. And that is more dangerous than the actual storm. You see, I don't get the feeling Jesus was struggling in the storm. And when Peter was looking at Jesus, neither was he. But as soon as he changes what has his attention, he thinks. Friends, when this happens, and it will, just be more Peter and cry out for help. For when you do, Jesus promises he will reach out his hand and grab you. And you see, baptism does not mean the 4 people that are getting baptized will never struggle. It doesn't mean they're always going to get it right. And I'm saying that for those of you that are really close to them. Then this is not going to make them perfect. But it means they know who to cry out to when life is a storm. So from this walk, we're coming to the end. We have seen that following Jesus does not stop the storms of life coming upon us, but if we allow him, Jesus can grow our faith through the storm. And the final thing to notice from this walk of Jesus is that even in the storms of life, our response is still to worship Jesus. Notice the storm ended when Jesus stepped into where the disciples were. Our storms will pass. But we have to be honest with Jesus and invite him into those circumstances. Some of you are trying to sort out the storm that you're in on your own. Keep your focus on Jesus and be willing to accept him as he steps into where you are. And as you do that, what is it we read in there? As Jesus steps into the boat, the storm ceased. It stopped. And when we do that, notice our circumstances may not change, but the raging storm in your life, because of your circumstances, that is what will cease. When Jesus stepped into the boat, when he stepped into the circumstances, the raging storm ceased, but they were still in that same place. And we experience this when we keep worshiping Jesus, no matter what is raging all around us. You see, baptism is an act of worship. It declares that Jesus is not just a helper in storms, but he's Lord over everything. The Gospel of John reminds us to stay connected to Jesus. As we read, live in me, make your home in me just as I do in you. In the same way that a branch can't bear grapes by itself, but only by being joined to the vine. You can't bear fruit unless you're joined to me. We can't live the life of a Christian. We can't know that Jesus is with us unless we're joined to him. May this baptism service remind us all to keep our eyes on him, the one who walks with us in the storms of life and leads us into new life. Let's pray together. Father, I want to lift up any that are gathered here in the room or gathered online that are really facing a tough storm at the moment. Father, help them to keep their eyes on you. Help them to see that in the storm you're not absent, you are there. Help them to trust you more than they did the day before, and to allow you to guide them through that storm. Until the storm is gone, may they just praise your holy name. May we know that, church, deep within our hearts, with every fiber of our being, that Jesus is with us in the storm. And if we will see, he will walk towards us. Amen.